Hi there, this is Laura Dovallo and I'm very excited to share my card for the 2018 My Favorite Things Card Design Superstar Challenge. It's a circus-themed card for the Innovation Master category. As you can see, when you pull the tab, multiple elements are activated. Arms and heads move, the large ball rotates and the small one flies up in the air. It's definitely the most complicated card that I've ever made, but it's not impossible, so if you're up for the challenge, here's a step-by-step tutorial for you. I was inspired by vintage movable cards which have very detailed mechanisms. One of the things that I discovered was that pull tabs don't have to be straight. This opens a world of possibilities since you can adapt it to your scene and link many elements to it. I'm pulling apart the prototype that I made so that you can see the mechanism before we start assembling it. All those tabs are linked to the back panel and all but one are also linked to the pull tab with small brads. I know that it looks confusing right now, but if we break it down into steps, it'll be a piece of cake to make this mechanism. I've prepared this template which you can download on my blog. There are versions both for an international paper size as well as for an 8 by 11 inch cardstock. It would probably be easiest to print the template directly onto some heavyweight cardstock and to glue that sheet onto another one so that you can cut out each of the pieces just once. Here I'm using scissors to cut out the pull tab, but a craft knife is even better. Once you've cut out all of the pieces, go ahead and punch the holes for the brads. I like to sand the holes with a nail file so that all of the elements move smoothly, but I guess it isn't really necessary. Your template has gray squares where you should apply the adhesive to secure the stop strips. I'm gluing them to the back panel with score tape, which is a strong double-sided tape. We're doing this to limit the movement of the pull tab. Now it's time to assemble the linkages using mini brads. They should be as flat as possible. We don't need any extra volume. All animals except the lion need 2 tabs. Those used for the bear are slightly shorter than the rest. I've attached one end to the back panel and now I'm going to attach the other end to the pull tab. The legs of the brad are facing upwards so that it'll be easier. But I did a terrible job staying in frame. I'm so sorry. I hope you'll get it anyway. Okay, it seems to be working perfectly. Now we can open up the brad again and link the other tab that corresponds to the bear. Remember that these pieces are slightly shorter than the rest. I have to make the hole bigger before I can continue. Let's check if it works. Okay, this looks great. Now we can move on to the lion. I actually cut all of my tabs using the dies from the interactive oval word Windows Dynamics. This is the smallest of the 3 pieces. I just pierced it so that I could use it for this mechanism. This piece will be attached to the pull tab with the vertical stop strip that you can find on the template. You'll see it in a minute. Let's skip the assembly of the last linkage piece since it's exactly the same as the first one. Here we go. Here's the strip that will enable the lion to move its head. I've attached small pieces of score tape to it and now I'm gluing it to the pull tab. The mechanism is finally finished. You can totally skip this part because you already have a front panel in the template, but it's a good tip if you ever want to create your own design. Put the same sized panel on top of the mechanism and slightly rub your finger over the key brads, which are those that rotate. This way you can mark your panel and move on to making the holes using a die, your scissors or a craft knife. Of course, it's easier to decorate your panel before cutting a bunch of holes in it. I use distress inks, masking paper the Star Celebration stencil and some gold pigment ink to create my circus background. The holes line up perfectly with the mechanism, so now on to the next part. I didn't want any of the white back panel to show, so just in case I grabbed a couple of Copic markers and colored the borders and the pull strip in similar colors. I covered the back panel with 2 layers of foam tape without interfering with the mechanism. As you can see, it's still working perfectly. The first element that I needed to attach was the magnet for the little ball. I had previously covered it with a paper circle so that the enamel dot would stick to it better. I placed the large ball and the seal in their correct spots to figure out where it should go. Then I attached it with some washi tape. Now I flipped over the panel and the corresponding magnet was automatically drawn into place there, with the adhesive side up. Just in case, I added a drop of glue. Then turned the panel around and pressed down the magnet for a few seconds. After that, it was okay to lift the upper magnet and check if the other part was stuck onto the pull tab as intended. Now we can expose the foam adhesive and carefully attach the front panel to the back panel. And once again, before we continue, we have to check that everything is still working. Let's reattach the magnet and see what happens. It's looking very good. We can move on to adhering all of the animals to the mechanism. I'm using these thicker foam dots cut into tiny half moons and gluing them to the linkage without touching the brad head or the border of the hole. Animals need to be able to move freely, both in this card and in real life. Wow, that took longer than I expected. Now I can go ahead and attach the large ball. Check that it's rotating correctly and move on to the seal. I'm just using a small foam dot behind the middle of the animal and a tiny sliver beneath the flopper or hind flippers. Just make sure that it's higher up than the ball. The rest of the animals were easier to attach, so I've sped up the process. Just let me clarify that I stamped the elephants and lions' bodies on stick it back to cardstock, so it was really easy to fussy cut them and glue them in place. The blue enamel triangle that I had in my stash didn't pop enough, so I just dipped it in Versamark ink and covered it in gold embossing powder. I think it turned out great. After adding a vellum banner with a gold embossed sentiment from the Greatest Show stamp set, I covered the back of my panel with thin foam adhesive to glue it to my card base, thus leaving extra room for the brads to move freely. It's always a good idea to make the card base of this type of card extra sturdy by using heavyweight cardstock and adding an extra panel on the inside. I ran out of blue cardstock and used black one instead, but it's best to use the same color or even white. I finally went with a red enamel dot for the smaller ball. Here's the card in action once more. Thank you very much if you watched the whole thing. I really hope it was worth it. I had a lot of fun imagining and creating this card for the 2018 My Favorite Things Card Design Superstar Challenge. There's plenty of time to participate, so go for it. Have a great day. Bye bye. Adios.